Окей, давайте, коллеги, будем начинать. Я надеюсь, что все, кто хотел синхронный перевод.
Okay, dear colleagues, let's start. Everyone who wanted simultaneous translation, you got it. And Zoltan is already here, and he's going to tell us about the concept of flow. He's a really cool guy. Come here, Zoltan. I hope that we're going to interact with Zoltan. I hope that we're going to have enough time for the Q&A session. So now, Zoltan, I give the floor to you. Let's give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zoltan, as I was introduced. I am here to speak to you about something unusual. It is to be happy at work and to be creative at work. It sounds like a paradox. Somebody calls it to become a Tom Sawyer by yourself. And I'm also going to ask you and discover with you whether technology can be helpful in this happiness at work. It is actually something which I am going to present to you based on my 25 years of working with executives, developing leadership. At the same time, I would like to share with you the knowledge and the wisdom of somebody who has created all this theory and flow, which we're going to talk about. And I will do this by sharing with you the essence of it, and demonstrate one technical solution which we use in the hope that you might get inspired. It will also create new opportunities for you to benchmark it and to see how it is possible what we do. I will do this in 4 sections. I will speak about how data is transforming science, it is transforming leadership development, HR and talent management, and organizational strategy. And at the very end, I have a very special bonus video for you as well. So, I come from a very beautiful city, smaller than yours, but very interesting, Budapest. And you know, the Rubik Cube was invented there. We are all playing around with theory and practice, and we do this very often in gamification. So this is actually the topic of what we are doing here today as well. As I told you, I was spending much of my time trying to find out the benchmarks of what is leadership, what makes people really effective at work. And some people are using leadership as a sociological approach. Some others use it more for a psychological approach. Again, others are using it and looking at it from a technical approach. I have been looking at this fundamental question all my life. We have also written a book about it, which is available. You can find more out about what I'm saying. It is documented. It's publicly available. The fundamental question when it comes to leadership is, how can we use the diversity of different individuals? How can we discover the internal motivations and the ambitions which people have inside themselves? At the same time, we would like to use these people for our company objectives, our company goals. So what is the possibility to use the diversity and the different faces which are behind the numbers? Csikszentmihalyi, whom I'm going to speak to you about, asked a very fundamental question which is going on in every day, every life, every workplace. It is a gray zone versus a colorful zone. The question there is, how come some people enjoy their life, they enjoy the work, they enjoy the activities, and others seem to be bored or frustrated? Is this something in the genetics? Is this something related to the profession you have? Or is there a technology, a framework, which can actually help people to become creative? And this is what we are going to talk about. I'm going to show you that data was used actually to change the science on this fundamental question about what makes people more colorful, more creative, more engaged at work. The book which I'm talking about is written by the Flow Professor. You can not only see the book of the Flow Professor, the other person, of course, it's me. But I would like to introduce you who the Flow Professor really is. It is Professor Csikszentmihalyi. He happens to be a Hungarian, but he lived all his life in California. And what he did is he was actually asking very fundamental question, as I told you, what is it that people actually makes a difference in living? When do they say that they have a happy life? And the answer they discovered, it is happening when people are creative, when they can do what they want to do. So Mihai has become, over the many years now that we work together on this technological solution, personal friend, but we do also academic work together, and this is what I would like to share with you. So I'm representing him also here in this context. The topic I would like to talk about is commonly known PATOK, so flow. What is that? Most people use it, but they actually don't know that this is a slang. Slang, it means, you know, it's used colloquially to feel very energized, that things are going easily, but it is actually not a scientific word. The scientific word for flow would be optimal experience. It is something which happens during the day. And here is a flow cafe in Budapest. We have lots of places named after flow, and this is taken in that, and you can see there is a dog in flow, very happy dog. How can this happen? When is it happening? Well, flow is a mental state, a mental process, which Csikszentmihalyi has identified. It is beautiful for us in business, in management, but also in education in general, because it's linked to an activity. It is something which is not passive. It is something where we are using our body, our brain, our abilities. It is not something which we just get and there it is, but it's an ongoing process when we're in flow. Flow, therefore, has to do a lot with dealing with people, with complexity, with doing something. At the same time, flow is very engaging, and we like to get in it because somehow we experience that time gets very condensed. Suddenly the 1 hour, the 20 minutes are gone, or sometimes we fully concentrate and our brain is opening up for the activity itself. But flow as such is useful because we get better at the activity. We develop our skills. So it is like playing jazz. It is happening in the here and now. You don't know how it will be in the next moment, but it is actually also something which you're creating and you are going to exercise and you get better at it. So the question, where does flow happen? We have also asked Mihai. I have asked him the question, where can be flow? Is it only for artists? Is it for only when you have lots of money, when you have no more problems? What type of activities, where can flow happen in a company? So we have asked him this.
And then slowly it became clear that it didn't have to be a special place like Apple or whatever, place where people are doing new things, but even a corner restaurant or drugstore or any place, you can experience flow very, very well. And so luckily this was discovered, and it has been used in all kinds of companies. For instance, in the United States, just came across this very interesting book. One of the authors, Eric Schmidt, has wrote to me that there's a whole chapter where flow is described about how they are trying to achieve flow at Google, and there are several other large American firms where this is done.
Csikszentmihalyi clearly says that flow can happen anywhere. And the reason he can say this is he did this statistical research. And this is the point where I'm saying that data has transformed science. Before Csikszentmihalyi, people were thinking that happiness is happening to a few people, but what he did is he gave little beepers to everybody, average people, and they asked at random moments, random times, how do you feel? When do you feel positive, when you feel up or down? And what emerged from this system is actually the result that it is possible to repeat happiness, to repeat creativity in certain moments, but there are certain conditions for that. This is what I will show you. This is the data represented by Csikszentmihalyi's work. This is the fundamental flow radar, and it shows that happiness, or the zone of flow, happens when we do an activity at a high level. It's complicated, but we also have the tasks, the skills for delivering that. There are different mental states, or sometimes people call it emotion, and this radar, this map, is the scientific background of the research which he has done, and it is also the background of the training and the leadership development which we're doing for managers. So flow is the zone up there. It is happening when you do something which is not easy, really complicated. At the same time, you get better at it and you develop your skills. That's the essence of it. But the other emotions which people need to discover and to find and to get trained in. So that's where leadership is now coming in. So far we were only speaking of positive psychology in general. So look at these dogs. They go home from work. What do they say? Always sit, stay, do this. Where's the project? When's the deadline? This is not the life of dogs. They want to think, they want to be innovative, they want to be free, right? Why are these dogs now unhappy? Why are they not in flow? Is it the problem of the dog? Of course not. It is the problem with the leadership. That's why we think that flow is such an important resource to create a company culture in which flow becomes possible. Most people, when they become leaders, they don't think of their employees as positive animals, so to say. They're thinking of them in terms of tasks, what needs to be done. So they're not considering the individual skills or the challenge they are delegating, and they're not actually playing around with this ability which is in these animals, in these partners. So in the flow leadership game, we train people, managers, international managers who are 35 years, 40 years old even, to get a feeling how it is to be on the borderline between the two extremes, which is anxiety, the green one, and the blue one, which is bored. It's a dynamic process. Each time, each day, there's a decision coming up. The leader, the manager has to think, when is this employee overburdened? This will cause anxiety. Or when is the activity so boring, like for the dog? Always just sit, always do this, do that. So when is it that the dogs can actually find their inner flow? This is the task which is made possible. For this we have developed FlickBee. FlickBee is an acronym, and it's the game, and it is partly a simulation system, so it's repeatable. You can play it for 180 days, you can get better at it. At the same time, it's not just learning, it's lots of fun. It is competition amongst the players. There are lots of badges you have to collect. You are taking a decision and you will discover the different effects of your decision which you make. FlickBee has won 5 years ago in the US, in Seattle, the best prize for serious gaming. So there is a competition which we also participate in on how to make FlickBee better. But FlickBee stands actually for Flow is Good Business, which are Csikszentmihalyi's best seller books. The first book was Flow. The second book, which in the English title is called Good Business. And we think with the technology, it becomes accessible for you, to you as well. And in our definition, there are many simulation solutions, many game solutions, and also learning solutions. But we think that all these three must be present. And we actually teach something which is value-based. So it's not just a technique, it's not just a framework, but there is actually this whole mentality about how to create a work environment in which happiness becomes possible. And for this is that we use games and simulations. So it is pretty strong in the sense of what the whole meaning of all this activity there is. Now I would like to play feedback and reporting, how it works, and ask Cheeks.
Every choice you make, and these 173 choices, you get points for certain aspects of leadership, and you don't get points for others. And at the end, you get a profile saying that, okay, you are very good at kind of strategic thinking, but you are not very good at proactive listening or something. You know, you get a profile, and that allows you to make choices as to whether you want to improve on certain weaknesses you have, or to develop even further your strengths. There are different ways to use the information, but that's up to you, and you can get advice for what to do it. And in fact, there is an avatar, there is a character in the game who is like an old magician type man, Mr. Flickby, and he can give you advice if you want. You touch his icon on the screen and he tells you that was a stupid move for these reasons, or yeah, that was a great move, and you can get feedback and figure out what to do. So it's very flexible, incredibly complex, and yet very concrete and obvious game, so that anybody can get involved in a few minutes almost to play it. But then some of the users report that it's very hard to break away from the game, and they spend hours and hours playing, and they come back to it and do it over and over to learn what exactly their strategy for decision making is, and what is strong about it, what is weak. And so I thought this was a fabulous application of technology to human relations and human learning, and I think this is a fairly unique product of that type, and I think it will be a pioneer in the area of learning, educational technology.
So Mihai and us, we developed a story for managers where you manage a wine company in California. The essence of this is to learn yourself the human skills of how to interact with people. But we use all sorts of game events, and you play it a long period over several hours. You can replay it, and it is very engaging for the people who play that game. So the overall task is to be able to develop your skills to balance subordinates, colleagues into the flow zone. And this is simulated over 1 year, a whole series, and there are business troubles, there are cash flow problems, there are conflicts, and you have to discover this for each of these participants, each of these employees in the story. So this is how it looks. There are real characters, they are Broadway characters, because we think that giving feedback to learners with numbers or with avatars is not rich enough. We needed the best actors to make the emotions feeling going through the video screening. So it's a movie, it's not numbers, and in the movie stops with 150 decisions, and depending on the decisions you take, the system is reacting. And Mr. Flickby, an avatar, is a person, a magician, who also tells you when you did a good job or a bad job. And people sometimes hate Mr. Flickby. I had students, MBA students, who said I had difficulties finishing the course, this game, because Mr. Flickby was telling always the truth about me. And it was so true that I had always to think about myself. So this is happening in the game, and at the same time you also have feedback about the impact of your decisions on how it affects the group level. So you cannot make happy anybody or always just one person. There's always a trade-off between group dynamics and individual dynamics. So this is here on the right side. We call it the corporate atmosphere meter in English, and this is a different indicator. And players find it very difficult because they also have to optimize the profits. So when somebody has finished the game, they are maybe good in financial decisions, but they were very bad at the individual emotional intelligence. But some people are very good at group level, and they don't focus on the individual, and some key personnel is leaving the company, maybe because they have ignored that person's flow potential. I would like now to move on to the next theme, which is how HR and talent management can be influenced by this. Why is this interesting? What happens in this wine company, when you manage it, you take all sorts of decisions to win this Spirit of the Wine Award. So what is the player's mind on? Winning the game, be good. But during the 150 decisions, we observe the decisions you take. We have coded these decisions, and Csikszentmihalyi was involved in this process, and we have identified leadership skills. He says that in his research of companies, managers he did observe in good business, these are the 29 skills which any manager he came across had at some point. You can find these also on the or on the flowleadership.org. We published this, it's publicly available. What I'm saying is that there are different nomenclatures of leadership skills. We use the one developed by Csikszentmihalyi, who thinks that these are the ones which are close to those who created companies where flow became possible. So these are the skills which we measure during the gameplay, which we are analyzing when the game is finished. So what happens is there is a cloud data bank in the middle. It's running on Amazon servers. And then when people are playing, the decisions they see first is the green screen. They see the interaction with the simulation game. But the moment the game is finished, the data is analyzed with a different algorithm to show which skills you have, what decisions you took and you didn't take. And then a second report is being able to be generated, which is completely different than the learning. It is already feedback about what your strengths are. Why is this important? Because strengths are the basis, skills are the basis to find your own flow. If you don't know what you're good at, you will not be able to get into flow. So we give this feedback after having played this game. So we measure this, and we think it is pretty objective. Why? There are two ways of measuring somebody's leadership skill. The classic way of measuring leadership skill is by asking questionnaire, psychometric tests. The other one is with experts. They send them to assessment centers. They look at how you are, but it is the picture which the assessor has of you. If you look at my presentation now, you will have different ratings, but I do the same activity. How can this be? It is because it is biased. Instead of this, the unbiased, objective way of assessing increasingly leadership skills for talent pool is through activities and in a simulated environment in which everybody is playing the same. So we're not saying that this has to do with this interpretation, that interpretation. It's the same situation, the same game which we use. So for this, Flickbee and Mihai, we have a second approach to the flow and become a better leader. We give feedback to the players on what they're good at. I've prepared a little video on the functionalities because I was told that you want to see the details, the numbers, and I will show you how it works in practice if I'm using this system.
Flickbee, the leadership game by Alea Simulations, designed and created by world-famous Professor Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. It is also an advanced data-driven people analytics tool. Let me show you how it works. Flickbee's metric system is an online platform for service providers to manage and see the reports of all their program participants. Within a group, I have control over all the players' game progress, how they're performing. Once the game is finished, I see their gaming progress. I see this person played 5 hours, the average is 7 hours, opened 8% of the media library, in contrast to the typical global average 27. The gameplay results such as corporate atmosphere tracked, profitability, summer flow very high for this person, flow trophy 71%, and yes, this person did win the overall Spirit of the Wine Award. Now let's focus on this person's leadership skills as we measured it. Communication is the highest and emotional intelligence the second highest. There is a definition for all the skills we use in the light bulb to assist you in the coaching process. All the skills which we are measuring are defined by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. There are 29 distinct leadership and management skills tracked in Flickbee. Now, some companies are interested in the overall performance of the participants, and for this we are providing a percentile ranking as well. The skills in Flickbee can also be grouped according to the ECQ system used in the US federal government system. It has 5 dimensions of leadership skills, which are grouped as you can see them here on the screen. The graph shows that this particular player has been absolutely above the global average of players, really a superstar person. But it can also be used for tracking skills which need to be developed. Assertiveness, strategic thinking, and empowerment are the lowest of the skills. For this, we can go into the review of the key gaming decisions. where we see all the 150 decisions in detail. We can then drill down and see, why did this person take a wrong decision? What were the options? What was the explanation for a good decision? And each decision we can go through one by one during the coaching session and discuss, what did the person think about that particular situation? Was it valid, not valid? Why we think there would have been a better solution for that. Powerful tool by Flickbee is the benchmarking tool. Not only that you can see a person's results compared to 15,000 other players, but you can pick any group which you think is relevant, typically the same peer group of the player, and then you can see this person's results compared to the peer group. In this case, the blue line shows that the individual was far above the dimensions of others in her peer group. But also you can see each individual skills and make different rankings and comparisons. The benchmarking function by Flickbee is not only on skills, but also for the aforementioned leadership decisions. Exporting Flickbee results into group results or Excel sheets is very easy. Here you see 29 skills, all the gameplay results for 40 players available for statistical analysis by HR decision makers. This was Flickbee, the leadership game, designed by world-famous Professor Mihai Csikszentmihalyi and Alias Simulations. You have seen the metrics functionality of Flickbee as an advanced data-driven people analytics tool. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
So this was for you to go deeper and to see, once we have trained people about the flow concept and they have played the game, we use all this data to give feedback to the individual and to the HR people about what they did in terms of skills, what they have, and how to improve it if they want to go further. Now, the third level of how data is transforming organizations and it is transforming the strategy is how Flickbee can be used. It has been used actually by a number of people in different industries across the globe. Currently we have about 15,000 references, people who played it, and there are some also in this part of the world. It has now been translated into Russian with subtitles, so it is available for people to do that. What it is doing, it is actually helping companies to create a more humane environment in which flow can happen at the office. How does this happen? It happens at an individual level with business coaching to find more creativity at the work. So coaches are using this one by one. They have one client, two clients, and then they go through the different decisions themselves. I use it as a blended learning tool on MBA programs. So they play part of the game, and then we discuss the decisions, and then they play part of the game, and again, so it is training the people how to be better at people management skills. Very useful for IT people, very useful for programmers, financial people, but also it is actually very good to train people who become more complex responsible, who were sort of specialists and now become actually part of a division or a subsidiary company. So it is to introduce the complexity of life, that there is a paradox that sometimes you have to cut in one direction. Somebody will cry, but it is the difficulty of finding the best way to cut across the problem. We think it is very, very useful for companies who want to create a lasting competitive organization where flow is happening. For example, Google is mentioned often. You saw on Mihai's book on the table, we had asked him to put out his book about flow, the other book which he wrote about the Flickbee game, and the top of that was the Google book. So if you want to create an organization in which flow for everybody is becoming the language, the common value, this is also possible. Many companies are using now Flickbee to digitalize the organizational culture. They're using this experience, the digital learning, as an example to change their own industry. And I think increasingly there will be HR people who make people train and ask them to learn for themselves, but at the same time they do get results and they can immediately find out that for a certain project, who is the person we should take on for board. And at the highest level, strategic planning, it is possible now to draw out scenarios, what kind of skills the company will have, and you can make immediately an audit within the company compared to the global benchmark. Is this the capabilities our people have by and large? So I told you that in Budapest my children play the Rubik Cube. I hope that it was an opportunity for you to discover that happiness is possible at companies as well. There needs to be a framework, and you have it. Please, this is what you should take home with you again. Balance of challenge and skills, little bit feedback, focus comes to it as well. And this is the teaching of Csikszentmihalyi in many different fields of life, arts, sports, children education, but also leadership development. And I hope that it was an opportunity for you to move around a little bit the Rubik Cube. And you know, the more you play with it, the better you become at it. My record is 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I would like to thank you for your attendance. I hope that this is going to be helpful and remarkable for you as well. May the flow be with you as well.
Thank you, Zoltan. Oh, sorry.